Alright, so viewers, fans, and subscribers all the same. Welcome back here to episode 10. We've gotten a pretty good far in here in the journey through the fighting game community. Welcome to episode 10 of the Space Bridge. And with me tonight is another fighting game player and aficionado on DFO and DNF, being a Upstate FGC player and commentator, and reigning tournament organizer for the King of Upstate for KOU. I want to introduce you guys to one of the former players. His name is Ladon.
Hello, everyone.
Ladon, how's everything been since I got a chance to sit and talk with you through the week?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, just busy, but I'm sure everyone's talking about Monster Hunter Wilds right now. Been grinding that a bit and kind of taking a step back from fighting games right now to play that.
How do you feel about Wild compared to World? Because like Wild's demo I played, it was really good. Don't get me wrong, and I liked that the loading time was a hell of a lot quicker than World's. But I'm thinking if I was a newer player trying to get into that game from either the older generation of monster hunting games to the current one, how does that one stack up to the priors?
I think it's all right. There is definitely some very standard weird decision making about because when I play it usually I've got a brother, and me and him will play it together, and my wife joined us this time to play it as like a 3-man, and I will say that a lot of the like multiplayer stuff is not great. They definitely took a step back from Rise on that, which is unfortunate. The game itself is fun, and everything you do in it regarding like hunting monsters is fun, but like the weird link lobby system they have going on, not a super fan about it.
Damn, a couple steps forward and a couple steps back in a different way.
Yeah, it was really weird coming from like I thought World had kind of ironed it out a little bit better, and then Rise was pretty much like, here's the monster, get your group together, go hunt the monster. This is like so convoluted in how it does it. It's very, very weird they went that way, but I mean overall positive on how the game plays, but that multiplayer stuff, they said that they're putting in like a gathering hub and they're fixing stuff, so that's good. But man, right now it's a slog. It's tough.
Damn. The horn is there just for like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. That's all. So far, we came so far in the monster hunting stuff. It's right there. It's almost the perfect game, and then it just drops.
Yeah, that, and I mean, I know a lot of people. I have a pretty high NPC, so I'm not experiencing it, but I know a lot of people are saying that like it is rough trying to play that game right now without optimization.
Oh my. Well, I guess we can only just write it. Oh, did they have any DLC announced for that game?
I think it's just like a lot of, help yourself to like character creation changes and free items, so you don't have to go and like grind a bunch of side stuff. I didn't really delve into it. I guess there's like an HD texture pack. I gotta check that out, but yeah, it's nothing like egregious from what I can tell. I know a lot of people like to jump on stuff like that immediately, but nothing I saw was like, heartbreaking to see from Capcom. It was very like, okay, this is the standard in every Monster Hunter we've seen, so.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go on ahead and hop right on into it. So, taking us into Dungeon Fighters, what first got you involved in the Dungeon Fighters hierarchy? Be it DFO, the old RPG, or even the DFO fighting game?
Yeah, so I'm actually a little bit of a rare case. I did play DFO pretty religiously. I was actually a seller, which, for those who are not aware of the term, what you do is you set up runs in the game, you offer them to people's, lower level characters, lower geared characters, and you run them through like daily content. They pay you a fee, they get the credit, and whatever loot drops for them, they get that, and then
Oh, you
you're
were a
all good to
Sherpa.
go. A what? Sorry.
It's a term that they use in Destiny. It's a term they use in Destiny for Sherpa, where it's like you're put in charge of a team or organizing a team for somebody if they hire you, in order to complete the objective. You may or may not get compensated, or generally, or in the case of the carrying service for like what Trials of the Nine and Trials of Osiris, you would.
Yeah, that
You would see
sounds pretty
compensation.
similar. Yeah, it was just like my character was obviously very, hyper geared and very good at the content and could solo it. So you can have groups of 4 in that game unless you're doing raids. It's much higher. But yeah, it would be me and 3 other people, and I'd be like, hey, 200,000. I'll run you through all your dailies for this amount, and any drops are yours and stuff like that. But yeah,
Would
I
it be
was pretty
split?
deep into that game for a long time. So obviously, I also had a huge backdrop in fighting games. I've been competing for I am coming up on my 20th year. um,
Ooh, congrats, man!
so
You've been in the game a while.
thank you. Yeah. I started with GGPO Third Strike. Got into that pretty heavy with a couple friends of mine who would become pretty well-known FGC heads. One of them is Seth LOLOL, who was very good at Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Also good at other anime games. A lot of people know him by name. He actually played a little game called Rumble Fighter with me when we were much younger. Like I said, about 20 years ago or so, which is crazy to think about.
Damn. Oh, I thought you were
But
gonna say Rumbleverse for a second.
no, yeah. So Rumble Fighter was this weird, like, platform slash free online game in the vein of like a Maple Story or something like that, where you could just hop on, and it had like these weird mechanics and stuff. And so I actually met him. If you know the name GC Yoshi, that's my boy Jason. I met him in that game as well, way before we knew anything about fighting games or people even knew who we were. Um, and we all kind of started with that. So it was this really cool like tie-in when I started really getting into fighting games, that I would see these guys after 5-10 years out of the game.
Hmm. It's taking you to a lot of places, and like this was like DNF was the main starting point that led down all those other avenues where you met all these amazing people.
Yeah. Like I had been playing fighting games even before DFO was released in the States. I think we got it about 2008, 2009 or so. And I had been playing on GGPO, playing Third Strike for a while. That's why my Twitter handle is Ladon3s. That's where I started, and everything started for me initially. Then I would eventually go out when Street Fighter 4 was around. I would travel to Syracuse from where I lived, which is about an hour in upstate New York, and that's where I met my offline scene. About 2009 or 10, there's still some old VODs of the original Team Spooky. Like we're talking way back, the 15 years ago, um, of them coming to what's called the Showdown at the Sheridan Hotel in Syracuse, and that was my first like big offline tournament. And we're talking like young Spooky, young Min, young Arturo, like all these names, in very much younger, and you can still find those videos up on YouTube.
I will take a look at that and note. I know, like, hell, I owe a lot of my platform to Victor Spooky.
Yeah, it's crazy to think of how much he did. And back then, we're just thinking like, hey, these guys from the city, they're coming up with like this is, young Bloodhawk, all these young Tekken player names that now is like the older crowd. Would come up and compete, and yeah, Spooky was right around the corner. He knew the guys that were up here in Syracuse, so he would come up and stream for us.
Oh, wait, so you got a chance to meet Spooky in person?
Oh yeah, I played him in the tournament. Yeah, like he came up. We played Blaze Blue Continuum Shift, the second version of the original game.
Oh
Was
my
my first
goodness.
yeah, that was my first big for. So people know. I know this is a surprise to a lot of people. I'm actually in my late 30s. I've been competing for, like I said, almost 20 years. I am an old head, but I was kind of not really big into the make myself famous stuff. So I didn't even have a Twitter until like, I don't know, man, 5 years ago or so, maybe 6 years ago.
Mm.
I just didn't really care about that stuff too much, but I was always here, like playing and competing with some of the best players.
What were some of the what was on this game or just like in general, just coming up through the scenes?
Oh, in general, yeah, like we have really good Tekken players. That's what upstate New York is known for. Joey Fury's like 2 hours west of us. We have ZTS here, who's won a major. We've got OFDP, very well known name in Tekken as well. ZZY, great King player. Yeah, we have you guys, I know you're more of a Dragon Ball head. Do you know the name Indra?
I do know of it, Mr. Indra. He used to be one of the better Android 21s.
Yep, Indra, that's my boy. He'll probably say to you, but I don't like to push it on anyone. But I did train him. He was, one of my early students. We played quite a bit of Dragon Ball. Um, I got to a point where we were going back and forth, and eventually he got very good at that game. I think he actually managed to beat oh, I'm forgetting his name. Oh, Pred. He beat Pred in
He
like
did,
a House of Chaos or something, and that was like I messaged him
because
and I
that
was
was a
like,
part
"Hey
of
man,
his
I
rise to
just want."
fame.
Yeah, because he was like, oh, I just want to beat you in a tournament. Like this sucks. I'm losing to you, and I was like, dude, you are so much better than me. You have no idea. Like go beat some people who actually matter. Like, I don't care. Yeah, Indra's my boy. Yeah, he was a fantastic player. Knew that kid had a ton of potential. Um, yeah, man. There's more recently, our scene has seen the rise of Carsonist in Street Fighter 6. That's also our boy.
That's the homie.
Yep, he's RFL. I asked,
yeah, he's a part of RFL.
yeah, I asked him about you because I was like, hey, I don't really know this guy. Do you know him? He's like, oh yeah, he's chill. I was like, all right, cool. Just wanted to make sure like I wasn't, walking into someone I didn't know that well. But
Fair.
yeah, like we've got him, we've got Chris D. If you don't know Chris D, he got fourth at Frosty in 2023 or
Say
something
Chris
like
D
that with
is
Rashid.
the Street Fighter dude, or am I thinking
Yes,
of
he is a
Oh no, I'm
Ken
thinking of
player.
Brian D.
Oh yeah, yep. No, he's a Ken player from Upstate. Yeah, we've got we've had these dudes on the scene for a while. Some of them like to travel a lot. Some of us don't. Our internal group of what goes on at Syracuse now. While I claim original TO status for King of Upstate, I am not the original. I am not the TO anymore. That is actually KangasKhanh. Everyone calls him Son. We know him very well. That's our boy. He runs Attack from All Sides and all King of Upstate stuff. That's him now. But yeah, Attack from All Sides is our general branding of this scene. But yeah, that's kind of how that stuff shifted over the years. Is a whole other story that like it would take hours to explain. But basically, we have a working scene now after 15 years of putting work in now, and that's Attack from All Sides.
Okay. Hey, that can also be another podcast some other point in time if you wish to delve down that rabbit hole. Tell their story.
Yeah. There's
Perseverance.
Yeah, needless to say, it is 20 years of history with me, but the big focus today obviously is the DNF stuff, so I can definitely go into that and but yeah, so to get back to that. Yeah, so I originally started in DFO. This was announced as I have the time between fighting games and MMOs and other games. It felt like a perfect marriage for me. So when I initially saw the launch trailer, I was probably the one guy nobody wanted to hear about anymore after a couple days because I was just constantly talking about it. Like, oh my god, they could add, oh I play, me personally, I have like 30 characters at level cap. I was like, oh man, what if they put in Mistress? What if they put in Weapon Master? Like, oh, they could put in this character. Like, oh, this character would be sick. And yeah, I would tell people like, look, I've played the MMO for years. They have so much cool ideas to go through this. So when that initial trailer dropped, we saw the stuff with like Inquisitor and Berserker and Grappler. I was unbelievably hyped for this game. So I immediately decided when it was announced, I was like, when this game drops, I don't care how much of a like switch up for me it is play wise, if it's like a weird system or anything like that. I want to go hard on this game. Like I want to grind it. I want to be one of the best because this is a property I really like.
Okay. And it's like it really was something you could see yourself playing and applying and kind of fell in love with it at first glance.
Yeah. I mean, I like I said, I looked at it and I was like, it's fighting games, it's DFO. Like you love this. This is perfect. Like why not? And then obviously it got confirmed that it was coming with rollback. So I was like, fantastic. Like this will be. It felt like originally, and I'm sure a lot of people have said this on the other podcasts as well, that like it felt like a pretty good game was coming out. Like we had it hit all the spots that people were looking for back then.
Yeah. Um, Going into the next thing there, what was the community like back then in the founding years of Dungeon Fighters?
So the fighting game, right?
Yeah, the fighting game.
Yeah, so DNF early on. So me personally, just to give you a little bit of backstory, like how I approached the game. The beta came out. We played the beta initially. The beta was weird. It random selected your character. I think a lot of people remember that as being a very weird decision. We had a lot going on in the beta that was like very confusing. But I played through the characters, and after a certain amount of time, I decided that Grappler was really going to be the character I wanted to play. So I went to him, and it mostly was because like I like consistent 50-50s. The way his armor worked seemed really interesting to me. And the more that we figured out systems in the game with the community, and initially the biggest collection of people playing that game was on the DNF Reddit Discord. And that was basically where everyone initially went for information, talking to other people playing the game, any interest in the game. So I hopped in there, and like most things, I'll just hop in and I won't really speak much, but I'll, kind of view what people are saying and this, that, and the other thing.
You're free to delve into it as you wish. You don't have to name names per se unless you feel you need to, but you can also just paint. The key thing is to paint the picture.
Right. Yeah, so early on for me, it was a lot of understanding, like, I'm going to have a different view of how this game is just because I am a huge fan of DFO. So the early, I want to say, like, first couple months, I was just focusing on grinding and figuring out my character. There was kind of general dooming about Grappler that a lot of people I bring up as, like, the Brian F91 incident, where, like, he started a stream, and Brian F was basically saying, like, hey, Grappler has, like, 9-1 matchups. He loses to everyone. This character is kind of shit. Like, he doesn't really, he doesn't function on a tournament level. And I was getting the complete opposite experience, but also I was, grinding to be top 3 on the leaderboard. I was hitting ranked up and just grinding it as much as possible. Brian made a comment at some point that was like, I could never see Grappler, for example, going on a like 50 game ranked win streak. So the next couple of days, I went and got a 50 ranked win streak, which you can see on his Twitter. If you really feel like searching that up, I just posted to him and I was like, hey, I think Grappler's really good. You should see this. And I posted the picture of me with a 50 win streak on there.
Ooh.
I had a lot of faith. A lot of people seem to misremember it as, because we'll get to it, but I did doom quite a bit about Grappler later on, and that's because I didn't agree with a lot of the changes that came to him. Like I said, we'll get to that. But early on, a lot of people will tell you that were present that I was pretty like hopeful of what this character could do. I thought he was fantastic. Great character, had a lot of cool options. Definitely had some matchups that were pretty rough, specifically like Ranger early on. Striker was a nightmare, as she was for most characters. And
Yes,
yeah,
Miss Consistent.
there was just a lot of like you would play matchups, and I would play people like my general people to play were like Seth. Stevo was a really good striker at one point. And then Cow, me and him were playing a ton. Cow's probably one of the best rangers in the world, in my opinion. He knows so much about that character. It's crazy. Me and him would play tons just to figure out like how these characters actually worked at a high level. But yeah, during all of that, I guess there was kind of this, the initial DNF problem was Swift, and everyone didn't like that Swift was so powerful in the initial release version. I will tell you, looking back on it, that character probably had multiple 8-2s, 9-1 matchups. Like, he was definitely just rolling over characters.
He was a very interesting magician out of the neutral. It's not even the combo game. It's just the fact that his whole premise of just playing neutral, he's playing damn near another game.
Yeah, you would explain it to people who were in the FGC for a while. They'd be like, well, what's his problem? And you'd be like, imagine Virgil with swords, except swords cost nothing. And it's like, that was the best way to explain it, where like he was just putting up win belt and winning immediately. Like, there wasn't a lot of characters that could stop that. Yeah, he had no cost. He was, chipping you with chip strings that would do like pretty much all your health. He had so many options. I do not ever fight the concept that Swift was a menace. He was absolutely broken, potentially one of the most broken characters I've seen in a fighting game in a long time. It was at least like 5 or 6 years. I couldn't really think of one in Dragon Ball at the time until the lab coat.
I was about to say it sounds about right.
Initial lab coat
Because
came
like,
out.
there wasn't one that was broken on release in that regard.
Yeah.
Every season there was like that one problem character that was a pain, damn near like a nuisance character. Like you had your Bardox or your 16s or the infamous GT
GT
Goku
Goku.
meta. Yep.
Yeah, yep. That was about where I had obviously GT Goku had happened. I had gotten past that, and I was like, man, that was rough, But that season 3 looked really good in Dragon Ball, so you were like, okay, we've got multiple assists, we got a game going on, and a lot of people loved season 3. So it was like, okay, we kind of rebounded from this. Going from like that concept, and when I stopped playing the DNF and seeing the Swiftmaster character, I was like, damn, this dude is cranked. Like, this is insane. I can't believe that like a developer nowadays would develop a character like this. He's demonic, like like I can't stress enough that character was busted to all ends. But I also want to preface that because I see a lot of people misreport this, that to be fair, this did not happen in a lot of games. That Swift was toned down within 2 months of that game's release. It might have leaked over to 3 months, but I think it was about 2.5 months, give or take. They did immediately tone that character faster than I've seen other games tone characters at that strength.
Damn.
Yeah, it's usually miscommunicated. People be like, "Oh, is Swift still broken in that game?" And it's like, dude, he was fixed. 2.5 months in, he was still pretty strong, but he was not the war crime that he initially came out as. He was not this monster of a character anymore.
2 months, 11 days. Wait, you know the time? You know the time?
Yeah, it must have been. It was definitely within 2 months. I remember because I would tell people like, of all the fighting games I've played, I have never seen a top tier character nerfed that fast. Like, it was
I was a Swift
number one.
man.
It
Oh,
could be
never
seen as
mind.
knee jerk. It could definitely have been seen as a knee jerk reaction, but I don't think it was. I think it was them seeing the tournament results and going, "Hold up, we might have like cooked with this guy too hard. He's actually winning everything right now."
The more you know. Okay, but you were a Swift man. Oh, so you were basically counting your days.
What's that?
No, I said no. In the chat.
Oh, gotcha.
No, he was a Swift man. I dropped the game after the nerf because they let Crusader rock another 2 or so.
Yeah, I mean, Crusader lost the Infinite, which was good. The Infinite was obviously a joke. Like, nobody wanted to play a Crusader immediately going for the Infinite. That was, anyone will tell you it was the easiest thing to do if you knew how to play Crusader. So when they removed his Infinite, they attempted, and I'll get back to that at some point, they attempted to remove Grappler's Infinite, and then they removed Swift from being this menace. Striker lost her guaranteed guard break, thank God. And I think Hitman got a minor nerf. I can't remember exactly what it was, but you then saw the replacement of Swift on top, where we now had like Striker and Hitman jockeying for it.
Sub question: did Striker still have her Infinite back then, or that was taken away?
I think she kept the Infinite until Grand Balance. If I remember, Gonmad would be able to probably tell you better about that because he was a Ghostblade and she only had it on Ghostblade, I believe.
I got you. Oh, Khalil with the raid. Hey, what's going on, man? Hey, Dungeon Fighters, welcome in. Welcome in. You're just in time for the podcast. How was the stream out there? Ladon, I believe you're familiar with one of my TO colleagues, Khalil.
Yes. I've watched a ton of stuff he's done. It's fantastic. Unfortunately, it landed in this, so I work a pretty rough job that takes a lot of time out of my days, so my entrants were mostly limited to can openers, TNS, occasional Clover clashes. Everything else I unfortunately never had the time to enter, but I did watch those events all the time.
Okay. Okay, I gotta make a command for you, but all you guys out there, if you're not already following Khalil, go on ahead and give the homie a follow. Again, appreciate the raid. All you guys that came in for the Dungeon Fighters conversation, you came to the right stream. right, as you were.
Yeah, so yeah, that whole point I was trying to make was that like I do think people oversell, and it is, a very not to put it in like a negative light, but kind of that FGC Twitter brain rot thing going on where it's like, oh, this game was just broken on release, why play it, it's trash. That, and meanwhile every DNF player was, trying to tell people, you got your people who were actually out there on Twitter, and Yipes and people like that were hosting events. We're trying to set the record straight a lot of time. We're like, hey, Swift's not that good anymore. Like, they did tone him down. We actually have kind of a workable game right now. Can you guys stop? Like, it's not this disaster anymore.
Exactly, it's the gloom and doom. Like that was during the problem with that, and the reason why people jumped the gun on that, which is a similar rabbit hole like what my previous client guest went into, is because it made a really bad first impression.
Yeah, and as a new IP, especially, like, you're not a new Street Fighter, you're not a new Tekken. You're this brand new like anime type game. People aren't sure what you're. Oh, is it more like Street Fighter? Oh, is it more like Grand Blue? Like, oh, is this more like Guilty Gear? Nobody knows what it is. It's its own original thing, which people to this day can still say. DNF is its own thing. Like, you're never gonna get. Oh, I get uni vibes off this. That's not going to happen with this game. It's completely different from all these games. But because of that, it felt like people were so less willing to give this game a chance.
Yeah, and all you can do is just try and just change people's minds.
Yeah, which is, so around around the time, like, after the Swift Master patch and everything like that, I personally decided to start entering events because I was comfortable with how my character was. So I had initially entered a pretty early TNS. I think it was the first or second TNS they ran for DNF, and I actually got blown up. I lost. I think I went 3-2. Didn't do very well. It was very much a back to the lab moment for me. Just picture Dexter walking back. Like, I was not prepared at all. There was a lot of like situations I wanted to answer myself. So I went back and I didn't enter tournaments for probably a good, month or so after that, just because I didn't feel like this character was, it wasn't where I wanted it to be, competitively. So that's when I brought it back.
Okay.
So, yep. So did some light work on that. And then I started to, just focus on the grind on ranked. Like I said before, I got top 3 on the leaderboard. It was me, Yusung Cha, and Armperer over in Korea, and I was third with Grappler there. And like I said, I was just trying to tell people, like, hey, I don't think this character is all that bad. Like, I think he's actually like a really good character. People definitely got to give this guy a chance. So yeah, eventually I was convinced to join the Grind Discord, which is kind of where I met and would meet a ton of my friends for the game, which we all hang out there. Even though that community is not really for DNF anymore, we point people to the Reddit Discord now that, like, yeah, we're not really heavy on the competitive aspect anymore. But yeah, I mean, I picked up there, started getting sets in with the good players. Hubert, Gone Mad, Anton, Lupro, all these people who would go on to place really well in tournaments. Finally got the confidence to re-enter an online event, and I would enter one of the can opener events, which is, I think it's can opener 64. All I know is that the tagline says Grappler did what? I got second to Blues
Oh,
Swift, but that.
you got second in a Yipes tournament. That's good shit, man.
Oh yeah, so he would so if you're not familiar with me, I would basically switch everyone's mind on this character, this Grappler in general, and people would just be like, wait, this guy, like, number one, like, not to talk myself up because I don't really like, bragging about myself, but I was the guy to watch for Grappler all of a sudden. It was like, this guy knows, like, so much about this character. I'm, implementing new strategies, new abilities to use, like, conversion overheads, things like that, the Grapplers, like, other people aren't aware of. And in the Reddit Discord, it would be between me and Fight Element for a while, which, if you don't know Fight Element, that's the guy who actually took the original Justin Perry footage, Let's Go Justin footage. That's the guy on the camera, is Fight Element.
Oh, okay. it was his originally.
Yeah. He originally videotaped that. He's a pretty chill guy, but I didn't know who he was. He was just feeding me a ton of like really interesting grappler tech that I was putting to use. And I was doing my own lab work, but he was sending me the stuff that was like, hey, if you do like a jump L on Hitman's wake up and he DPs, it whiffs and you can come down with a JB. You know, like this very specific stuff that was really good for matchups. Yeah, I owe that guy a lot. He definitely like handed me a ton of information of how to like pilot this character. But yeah, eventually you would see like the peakings of like Davids would come around that Discord too, and me and him would go back and forth a lot. We mostly disagreed on a ton of stuff. You know what's crazy is do you know Davids?
I've heard the name. I have not had a chance to meet the person.
Okay, so he's a German grappler player. He's very good. I have to give him credit as much as I'm sure there's a lot of people in chat that are just like, don't give this guy credit. Like his ego is insane. But he was very good. But we kind of switched spots. It was funny. Initially, I was hopeful for Grappler. He was dooming, and then we swapped by the end of this game span. And like he's hopeful for Grappler, and I'm dooming. Like
Mm.
we clearly had two completely different play styles, but you know the conversations were genuine sometimes where it was just like, hey, do we have a solution to this? I don't know, let's lab it. Like, yeah, we gotta do something about this character. And those are the type of people you really want to have conversations with, the ones that understand that, like, hey, I think this character feels like crap, but can you give me some kind of pathway here to figure out what's going on? And then those are the conversations you always want. You don't want people to just tell you like, nah, he's trash, don't worry about it. Like, you want to actually take it to the lab and figure it out.
Next question. In your opinion, what do you feel was the most broken mechanic in the game?
So initially, it was definitely certain characters at 30% health at Awakening. There were very rough matchups in that game due to the fact that, like, the big one everyone's going to remember is Hitman, obviously, you know. Hitman's comeback DP, unpunishable if done at certain ranges. Could conversion it to make it safe. Had no scaling. It felt like it did a million freaking damage. You would lose from huge percentages if that thing hit you. Yeah, if Shattering Strike hit you, like there was a chance you could die from his DP. I was not huge because the game's damage, even when we were optimizing towards the end of that like first balance patch, you really couldn't avoid Hitman getting to that 30% unless you like had your awakening, you know, you primed all your resources and you got the perfect hit, you could kill him. Dealing with that was an actual nightmare, and I'm sure a lot of people remember like fighting Tenured Mule or Diaphone to a point early on, and I would run into these guys in ranked and I was like, I don't know what I
Tenured
do when I get
Mule.
this character low, man. What's
Wait,
that?
that name sounds super familiar. Tenured Mule. You a Strife player by
Yeah.
chance?
He plays
And
Grand
a
Blue.
Grand Blue player? I know
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, he was probably the best hitman. God, I don't know, in the world maybe. Like it was really tough to place him over any other hitman. He knew what he was doing, as much of a
Wow.
troll as he was. He was fantastic hitman, but
Damn, Chad, small
yeah,
world.
yeah, we people did not like Hitman early on, and especially if you didn't have a way to kill past his awakening, man, it must have been miserable for certain characters. Like I imagine Launcher probably just you ripped your hair out because it was just like, I don't know how to kill this character without giving him awakening, and when he's an awakening, I just die. But yeah, early on, definitely awakening. And then with the Grand Balance patch, with Spectre patch, I would go on to think that one of the worst mechanics ever added into any fighting game ever is to give a game with long recovery on normals. Invulnerable rolls are terrible. I think front and forward roll gaining, or front and back roll gaining invulnerability on frame one is terrible. But I do think that the worst mechanic this game ever introduced was IS.
Okay. That question's had a couple of different answers, so this is fascinating to hear another side of that.
What are the if I can ask, like what were the other ones that were pointed out?
Another one pointed out was the role mechanic, because some characters that didn't have counter matchups. Now had an OS a defensive OS that they could apply,
Yes.
and
Yep.
others that already had other ones. This is another thing that they can apply that doesn't need to be added to their toolkit. Or
Yeah. So
it's part of
roll.
the argument.
Yeah, roll felt very polarizing in that there were characters in the game who, Striker's a big one, who had kind of like automatic quote unquote roll catches where like as if they did roll you and you pressed like 5M, on Striker, it would autocorrect as M moves did. Um it would autocorrect to the side that they were going. So if you were not blessed to be one of those characters, like you now had to deal with roll. Grappler was a huge one. That's why I started dooming on him in Grand Balance, because we got invulnerable rolls. You now had to plan everything around the chance that, like, hey, this pressure I'm doing, they might roll it. And just that extra layer is insanely frustrating. And that's why I'm not surprised someone was like, yeah, roll was it was horrible. It changed Grappler from this monster Oki character with okay damage to like, well, your Oki might be right, but you also just might get rolled on, and then what do? You can't. You're not fast, so it's not like you can catch that roll. I know that there are ways to do it, but having those plans versus like his game plan initially was so simple. You safe jumped him, and then they had to make the decision of like, do I want to get thrown here? Do I want to get hit with a low? Do I want to get comboed, or do I make an escape here? And that's kind of where I popped off, because I would always have good Oki in every situation, and losing that with Grand Balance felt miserable to me. So yeah, I can 100% see the hate on rolls, as I was like a huge hater for him forever. But I gotta say, I got outplayed. I got completely blindsided by the concept around IS.
Okay, all right. Concept game changer. Oh, before I move on to the next question, did they ever nerf that or edit that mechanic any as the years went on?
Roll.
Yeah, roll.
No. In fact, initially we only had a forward roll that was, I think it started like frame 4 in Vulnerable was initial release. With Grand Balance, it became frame 1, which, got obnoxious for obvious reasons. And then with Spectre Patch, they dropped the ability to back roll frame 1 in Vulnerable. And that's when things really tanked for certain characters that did not have ways to fight rolls, because now not only were you guessing if they rolled, you were also guessing where. So a lot of these characters that had like one option Oki, where like, hey, if they roll here, at least I'm covered to get like this, tiny baby combo. Now it became, if they roll the other way, I have no plan that's going to catch both of these roll sides. Grappler was a huge one of that, where like if you back rolled and he was mid screen and he didn't do the right setup, it was over. He lost his one advantage, which is being on you for Oki.
Damn. Okay. Let's see. Next question. In your opinion, has the DNF IP aged well or adequately over the years after DFO and DNF, and possibly even the new entry coming with the newly announced Dungeon Fighters relevant video game?
I say like it has aged good, but not great. Um, I think the MMO still pulls in players, but not new ones, because it is a very like specific type of graphical, take. You have to have their pixel characters. It is what it is. They're not going to look insanely better even if they update. So the MMO is definitely hurting. The IP itself, I think Kazan is a great step for them. It's going to be potentially the way that people get more interested in it is by dropping that, fighting system that people aren't really, too familiar with. People say it feels like a Dark Souls. I keep hearing it's not really like that. It feels completely different. And I've heard that game really is great. So hearing that Kazan is doing well and is probably gonna do well is good to hear as a longtime DFO fan. DNF is like I want it to be great. I want it to be this thing that like really changed people's opinions. But I think overall, the negative reception, the game is dead jokes, the concepts around it, like a lot of people really did point out, and I have to agree to a certain point that the characters having class names instead of actual names when the DFO IP does have like quest NPCs with those names they could have just added as the original cast was probably a bad step because people want to attach to their characters. If they're just like, "Oh, who do you play?" "Oh, Striker." "Yeah, but who the hell is Striker?" Like you want names, you want like personalities you can attach yourself to a little bit. I think that it's a fair complaint that a lot of people are like, why is this character just called Grappler? And it's like, yeah, I don't really have a defense for that. I don't really know why they didn't give us named characters. It's very weird.
Yeah, because that would also help with an added layer with diversifying the cast. Because I mean, obviously you're going to drag drop characters from DFO into DNF, but it would be an interesting layer to also just delve into the lore more, see if they all actually have names, and figure out like, are these just code names? Because I'm sure most of them are just code names, and that's understandable. But have that be expressed.
Yeah, like it would basically be like I don't know how familiar people are with other MMOs and stuff, but it would I'm trying to think of a good example here. If you know Final Fantasy 14, it would be
Yes.
like instead of Thancred being called Thancred, his name was just Gunblade. You know what I mean? Like it's like who the hell is Gunblade? Like no one knows who that character is. It's like yeah, no, his name's Thancred. You have to have personality behind these names for people to attach to. It's very weird that they went that way. It's interesting. Don't get me wrong. It's interesting that they went that way, but it would definitely be a complaint that if someone voiced to me as a DNF fan, like, why is it? I wouldn't have a defense. I'd be like, yeah, you're right. They should have really given them actual names, huh?
Yeah, it's one of them catches. Just like you kind of got me there. I really don't know why they did that. The characters do have a like in terms of like the visual appeal is there. Arxis didn't drop the ball on that. But in terms of giving them the name, I think we might have missed the cup, Bobby.
Yeah, yeah. It feels weird. Feels very weird.
And then while we're going, chat, if there's any questions, comments, or concerns that you all wish to have for either me or for my guest here tonight on the podcast, by all means feel free to ask a question. And then when we get to the end of the panel, or if you guys wish to, I can go on ahead and we can shift over and I can answer and he can answer some of the questions that some of you guys may have regarding DFO or DNF while we're going through. That way you guys can listen, you guys can also interact and engage and try to have an enlightened idea on the video game while we're going through. Um, Next thing I want to get into, I guess, was the fiscal consistency with the scenes. Were there money issues or any money coming in from companies in order to resume investment to the IP's growth or to the scene's growth?
Yeah. So famously, we had a string of weeks for about 8 weeks where can openers. And I think TNS saw some of these too. I think TNS got a couple of them. They were $1,000 pot bonus tournaments. We had, I think it was from October of, oh God, what was DNF's release year? 2023?
2022.
2022. Okay, thank you. Yeah, from October to December of 2022, we basically had 8 weeks of can openers, um, and some TNSs. Man, I could be messing that up, and now I'm double thinking it. But we had events that were Nexon themselves put in $1,000 and was like, "Here's your pot," So that showed us that there was definitely an interest because people were very transparent about where this money. They were like, "Look, Nexon's giving us this." Yipes was telling us Nexon's giving us this. They want you guys to put on a good show, and those were the ones where I would do very well in, and I walked away with definitely enough money to fund my trips. I think I went to two majors that coming year that were fully funded by those events, so that was great. Nexon did a great job, and yeah, we got paid. It was great. But if you look at that, if I'm like a 19, 20-year old who's entering his first tournament back then, which obviously I wasn't, you would look at that and be like, that's really cool that they did that. Man, that's awesome. Someone who's a little more experienced in the scene like me also sees that as like, I don't see how this is helping the game that much. We needed Steam sales. We needed, injected activity into the game. Maybe even like, because this felt more like we're giving the community that really cares about us some money, but we're not really going to touch the community that's not playing this game right now. That's a problem. You can't look at it like the people who are playing the game right now are going to be your primary financial bonus. You know what I mean? We're already invested in the game. We're not spending more money on it. Sure, we're going to travel to tournaments, and there's the Arc World Tour was going on, so we're going to go there. But to do these like $1,000 pop bonuses they were so nice for people, especially in the grind servers who were getting these top eights. It wasn't really going to do anything for the game at the end of the day, you know.
Hmm. Okay. And well, layering on that, how consistent were some of the events? Because I know the bigger ones, those weren't always weeklies, but with the ones that were not seen, were those weeklies or like bi-weeklies? Like what avenues usually like allotted the best turnouts besides the big $100 and $1,000 pots?
Yeah, I mean there was definitely some offlines that had people go to them. I think Team Stickbug did an offline that they like. I think Jackspecs got the katana or whatever from that. That was really interesting. They were offering like a Ghost Blades katana, I think, as the grand prize. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, I don't know if he talked about that, but that was why I remember seeing that and being like, "Yo, I will first attend you for that katana." That is crazy. Um, yeah, there was that. There was just, offline events. We had one here in Syracuse that was I think we did like a $250 pop bonus one. GoldenEye ended up coming over from Albany to play in that. And so it was like me, him, and my boy Christy in finals. I ended up winning that event. But it was really good to see him and put a face to a name. GoldenEye's a stand up dude, great guy, really good Ranger player. But yeah, towards the smaller stuff, I entered like a few of Goatee's events pretty early on just to kind of get my tournament legs under me. And those were nice, but it was a lot of like, $50 pot bonuses, $30 pot bonuses. They were fun events. I just really used them for that, but like the payouts were definitely there. Yeah, it was. I know there was also a lot of stuff happening on PlayStation. I just never really wanted to get too into the PlayStation stuff because whenever I played it, I could feel the difference in the frame lag between the PC and the PS. And I prayed that that wasn't going to happen on lines, which, surprise, we ended up playing mostly on PS. Um, and that stuff was rough. It was like a 5 frame, I think it's like 4 or 5 frame difference. Someone could probably correct me on that, but it was noticeable. And we used to call like Zerker's instant overhead unblockable because like you weren't reacting to it. It was insanely fast on PlayStation. Yeah, things definitely changed on the offlines for running it on PlayStation versus PC. It felt completely alien and different.
Yeah, I can believe that. For the times that you were on PlayStation, because this was brought up by I know Vicious and Moroku brought that up in one of the earlier podcast segments. Were, d Not taking into consideration the differentiation of frame delay between PC and console, but did you also have DCing or desynchronizing that was also happening consistently on
Oh,
console?
yeah, so I had heard about this quite a bit that like early on in the PlayStation's life, they were having huge issues with desyncing and issues with the online and stuff. We weren't really seeing it on PC. Occasionally you'd get like disconnected and just be like, "Oh, servers are acting up, no big deal." We weren't really seeing it on PC that much. So I imagine it was probably a Sony side issue, but I didn't see it personally cuz like I said, I grinded out top 3 on the leaderboard and I didn't see that in all my time. It was never really that rough. So it must have just been a very specific PlayStation issue that nobody, this team was anyone will tell you their communication was rough. Um we really couldn't get them to hear from us a lot of the time, or like you didn't have a general area to go other than their Twitter, which would thumbs up negative posts about DNFDuel on its page. And I'm sure they talked about that because it's still one of the funniest things is like some dude writing out a whole paragraph on why DNF is bad, and then they like it on their Twitter and don't say anything about it. And it's just like,
Hey,
bro,
yo.
what are you doing? Like, you can't just give them negative press for free. That's insane.
And they like it too. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, it's so it genuinely, like,
I mean,
our standard
any
reaction.
attention is good attention, but come on.
Yeah, I just don't think they, I think they saw the Korean and Japanese scenes with this game, and they were like, oh, people pretty much like, because they're used to that. They play pretty rough games over there. It's like a time honored tradition to play kusoge and stuff like that. It's not really a big deal to them, but over here, like, dude, if your game's not good, everyone's hearing about your game not being good. That dude that comes to the local that only talks about why his game is a piece of shit, like, he's going to
He's
talk
going
about that
ham,
when he comes
yes.
to the local. Yeah, every time.
Let me see. Let me think. When are the DNF? When are the IP? When are the mechanics? When are the money issues? Next, let's delve into the premise of the DLC. So for this one, I'm gonna go back into my bag, so to speak, chat. We're going to delve into, as soon as I can find the thing of all 5 of those hush puppies. Here we go. So we're going to
So
delve
if I
into the
can,
DLC characters here, and then your take on how you felt like the DLC pass and the characters, how they affected the grid and the meta, and you investing further or the community investing further. I'd like to hear your take on this.
okay, all right. So just kind of like my overall thoughts on like what happened with the season passes and everything.
Yeah, in each era.
Yeah. So obviously, after a while, the DNF community, no reason to mince words. We felt pretty abandoned after a bit. That there wasn't really any news on what was going to happen. So when I'm not sure if you heard the story of Tidal Wave going and competing in an overseas ArcSys event. He got top 8. Made a very funny comment that we all make fun of him for because it sounds insanely bad out of context.
Oh yes,
Um,
that was brought up. Yeah.
yeah,
Proceed.
Yep. He went there, got top 8. They didn't want him to get top 8. He'll tell you that because like they were plotting against him, but because they didn't want an American in top 8. But he did get it. So kudos to him. That was a tough run. Um, he had told us that like the developers while he was there had mentioned that like stuff is coming. Like that was basically their big thing, like something's coming. They're working on it. And from the way he worded it to us, because this is all mostly in the grind server, right? Like we're not really going out and just telling this publicly. It's just people, shooting stories back and forth. You always have that one guy who, has like a little bit of an in who gives you like a heads up that like, hey, something's coming in this game. Just heads up. Um,
Yeah, because I mean, you go through the trouble to make a trip, as long as you didn't sign what is it, an
NDA,
NDA,
yeah.
yeah. As long as you didn't sign an NDA, you can kind of put it out there. Hey, something is kind of coming.
Yeah, so he kind of gives a heads up that like the game's definitely changing, and that's kind of when we first heard the rumblings of the Grand Balance patch. Grand Balance patch trailer comes out. There's a clip of us going crazy. I think it's on Hubert's channel or something of all the players in like the grind. I mean, we had like 20-person voice chats back then. That shit was crazy. People just being loud to be loud. Um, and we are all super excited. You can hear, me screaming and everyone being like, "Oh, thank God!" Like they care. We're just, we're so happy that like this developer cares. Like they're gonna give us something. That's all we want. So we're all very excited about that. And then they tease Spectre, I think like a week or two later or so. And we're like, "All right, we're getting DLC, dude. This is awesome." And then the date drops, and it's summer of next year, and we're in December, and people are like, I think the first initial dooming was probably from like me and a couple others that were like 6 months out for a season pass feels crazy. Um,
Just a
Because most
bit
games,
much.
they'll launch and immediately be like, hey, within the first 3 months, you're getting your first DLC character. Everyone clap. Like, in Tekken's case, here's Eddie, who should have been in base roster, but he's coming as DLC. It's like, okay, at least people have something to be excited for. This was so weird because we were like, well, the game's already dwindling a little bit. We're definitely getting like people getting hangups on ranked matches. A lot of the same people are still playing the game. The numbers are dwindling. Twitter's going wild with what is that stuff? Steam charts or whatever. I don't even want to get into it.
Oh,
It's so
on
stupid.
like not charts, but there are tier lists and stuff, or like hypotheses and conspiracy theories.
Yeah, it's like they'll show the DNF most played for today and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, it's dead game, and we're just basically hearing that over and over again. So we're hoping for something. 6 months out, I mean, you immediately have people going like, that is really long. I joined
Oh,
the
thank you, Phantom.
bandwagon on
Yeah,
that, and
Steam
I was like,
charts. Oh, you had it right.
Steam charts, yeah, okay. Yeah, I immediately was just like, yeah, that's pretty rough. Like a half a year for what this game needed. But we've got this new patch to play with. Maybe it'll be good enough that we can convince people to like come back to it. Um, I will say that for the Grand Balance patch, while a lot of people will cite it as their favorite patch because there was a balance finally happening, the specific one is like if you played Launcher, you weren't playing half a character anymore. She was miserable in the first version of the game, but you now had an actual character in Grand Balance. I'm not saying that she was fantastic. I'm saying you had a workable character. You know what I mean? Like I'm not I'm not saying they fixed her. I'm just saying that character can function now. Um,
Yeah, they made her like a
so
complete character in a sense, like
yeah,
with
like
it,
she her
like with
her
fighters
and
and making his DP for Beerus viable, so now he can be a whole character.
yeah, as a Beerus
Fixing the
player, I can
toolkit.
tell you, yeah, it's a big deal to finally get a workable DP.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so it was definitely a better move. I personally, as a grappler, did not like it, and I would never come to like it because I think that's they added frame one invulnerable roles, and I think that was one of the worst decisions they ever made. But I could also see why people very much like that patch. So we go through the motions and we play on Grand Balance patch and people are liking it and results are kind of like back and forth. We get through the Arc World Tour. A big thing that a lot of people don't piece together as to why it happened is the Arc World Tour ended and there was no follow up. And the next time we even heard about the next Arc World Tour, I believe it was just Strive was on it and like nothing else was. On top of that, and Evo doing their lineup announcement and no DNF being available, knowing that we were very much not going to get Evo or like DNF on the main stage at Evo was pretty heartbreaking for a lot of these guys who were like grinding hard. I know for like the younger kids especially who were big in the scene and were top 8 brackets. That's a tough thing to get hit with, your favorite game that you've been grinding for a year now has no chance to ever make it on a main stage Evo. So it can feel really bad, and I can't really blame those people for hanging it up right then and there. That's a tough call to just be like, yeah, the fighting game community is pretty much spoken at this point, and people are going to call this a dead game, and nobody wants to support it. Bye. Like have a nice one. You're out of here. Like good luck with your Discord fighter. And that's harsh coming from me, but as someone who experienced it, that's what it felt like for everyone, I'm sure. We
yeah,
felt super abandoned by a scene that felt like they didn't want us in the first place. Uh, we were. The thing that really set people off was like, and even my run to Frosty, and I'm not going to sit here and dunk on TOs, but just getting our brackets set up correctly was like pulling teeth. The famous one was like we went to Frosty and they had not seeded Yu Sung Cha, who was already qualified to go to the Arc World Tour. And we were like, dude, what why is this guy not seeded? Like he's probably the best Ghostblade in the world right now. Like what are we doing? And they were just like, "Oh yeah, we'll fix that." And we had to have talks and back and forths. And I think it was mostly like Cow and maybe Taco and some other people reaching out, Huber, that like and it was very much this kind of return from talking to them of, yeah, we don't really care, guys. Like you're gonna get your tour and everything, but we don't really care where these people are placing. And it was tough. I couldn't help but, as the more seasoned player, I couldn't really tell these guys that, like, oh no, it's fine, guys. We just gotta have faith. It's like, no, I'm not gonna lie to them. Like, this feels really shitty. Like, no one cares anymore. So to go through all that and then to have the game not given an evil space, not sure what's happening in the future. Spectre's coming out, so that's good. We've got like hope. Um, it was really hard to get people to kind of rally and think about like maybe this game could make it.
Oh, before you delve further down that DLC rabbit hole, we do have a question here in chat from Resby. He is asking, why is Crusader top 1?
Oh man, oh god. He was in Grand Blue or Grand Balance. I'll give him that. You could argue for top 1 there, but I don't know, fella. Not since then. I don't really see it. Man, that character, what a weird guy. Had an almost instant wall to put up to punish you from full screen that they gave a bunch of startup frames. Like that character's a pretty good example of, like, I'll get into it later, but the weird balancing decisions that they decided to go with, and how, like, you could ask any player of certain characters about like little buffs or little changes that characters got and be like, who do you think asked for this? And they'd tell you no idea. Like, I don't know who was complaining about this, but this change makes no sense.
Well, hopefully that'll answer the question a little bit. DNFDuel in a lineup, Evo lineup would have been wild. Well, chat, ask me that question because I actually have a question for you, chat. Did they go over the last few reveals for Evo 2025? I'd like to know. Did it make the cut? Did we make enough steam in order to make it hot? Don't worry, Crusader got replaced by Monk anyway.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Monk is definitely not a replacement, bro. I heard from what it is I could read on the patch notes when I was talking about it with one of the Blast dudes here. Monk looked like he was a pretty interesting SOB to deal with.
There is, like, we'll get into it later,
He's
but
so
there's,
boring.
Yeah, he's everything that we thought DNF never was going to be, Monk is, if that makes sense.
Okay, so he made the impossible possible. So he was Mr. Top Tier.
He feels like everything that people hated from a competitive standpoint. I'm not talking casuals, obviously, but
Yeah.
everyone who competed in the game, everything they hated about that game, Monk has. And it is crazy to me that that character was, like, made that way.
Damn. I can see why he's boring. I mean, that's basically the game plan. So every counter game plan he has that is just do it.
Yeah, if you hated characters having projectile invulnerability because you were a zoner, he's got that. If you hate armor, so there was a tech developed a long time ago. It was mostly by grapplers and Vanguard players, called CV Armor, where the first, like, as you're doing an armor move in the game, it has a certain amount of startup, and then you have the armor, as is with most games.
Right.
If your armor gets struck in DNF, you are immediately given white life instead of them just, like, chunking your life off or anything like that. This is pretty common in other games with hyper armor where, like, you just take some gray health or something. In DNF, this is a problem because you can conversion that. Conversion stops the game. I used to call it, like, ghetto YRC.
Ooh.
When you
Oh,
can
we'll get there, bro.
CV armor, if someone hits your armor and you hit CV as, like, an OS, they are then required to respond to what you're doing. And if they don't have a choice but block, you now have, like, basically broken the rules of the game, where if someone Gatling, so the big one that everyone knows is, I used to abuse this on Vanguards, like KangasKhanh or Luful or any of those guys will tell you, if you did 5B with him, which is big downward halberd slice, you do 2B immediately after to check the low. That way, if Grappler was armoring you, you would hit him low and you would counter hit him. And that was kind of how you outplayed Grappler and kept him out. The tech we developed was, if you did any kind of armor move with Grappler other than his charged command grab, so his 2S charged was the big one, his big rocket kick he does. If you hit him with the 5B and the Grappler is OSing CV and you just hitting the CV button, you can jump and your jump frames will come out before his low comes out, and you get a full jump in punish on that character. Completely changes the game. Like, that was a bad matchup until we discovered that. That is completely changes the meta, completely changes how you play that character. There are a lot of like newer players that will pick up the game, and we still get occasional new players who will be like, "Hey, I'm struggling with Grappler versus Vanguard. What do I do?" And the answer is usually like, "I need you to go to the lab and know this tech because it completely changes the landscape of how this character functions against you."
Yeah, that does borderline an essential.
Yeah, so it's stuff like that that the community would eventually find. But yeah, so Monk came along, and Monk has armor on stuff. So now, guess what he gets to do? He gets to do armor CV, and it was like on top of this overloaded character that does a ton of damage, he now has a unique option that only a few other characters have.
Right. Oh, are you there?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Proceed.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just go back to, coming up to the DLC. So Spectre looked really cool. I think a lot of people were looking forward to her. She dropped. I did some labbing with her. Anton did. Gone Mad did. I think a lot of people labbed her pretty thoroughly. And we ended up with a cool character who had some pretty neat mechanics, but lost to the most basic, problem mechanic, which was rolling. Her frame data is really rough. The worse your recovery is on any character, on any move, the more recovery you have, the more roll becomes a problem, and the more roll will just outright beat your character. So she was one of the first characters that had that, along with her dropped back roll, and we got the patch for her that introduced it, Indomitable Spirit, or IS,
Yeah.
which from before,
Added
that
defense
is
buff.
my most hated mechanic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what IS did, and I'm sure your other people have covered this, if you block and hit a button, you give yourself additional block frames from the move. So like, it's not great versus like lockdown on characters, but you do have to do it. It will give you a tiny bit of white life for doing that, and you now have access to conversion. One of the things that like accidentally balanced the game was access to conversion for a long time, but then we had characters like Berserker, Troubleshooter, that would break the meta a little bit because they had ways to give themselves white life, and the white life was your, ghetto YRC. This is how you got in, or how you abuse stuff, or how you got instant mix-ups. It's very important to have white life in this game. So giving everyone the access to it, turns the whole tier list on its head. It switches up how characters are played. It makes things a lot more dangerous. Like, punishes are huger. Neutral skips are harder to deal with. There is just a lot of monkeying around going on in these games now, and it feels like my exact words when I started to watch how people were playing the game was, it feels like we are playing a playground toddler ass neutral all the time now.
You gotta be safe like 80% of the time.
Yeah, because anything you do, if you see a DP, if you see they jumped with you, anything you do, it's like, okay, I'm going to CV here and stay safe. Or, oh, I'm going to CV here. Ranger's a huge one where he has the infamous guard break setup where he throws his two guns at you, and that's how he starts his guard break. If he has white life and he does that, you no longer have an option. You can't escape. You can't, you can't roll. He's going to punish you because he's back to neutral. Um, and all these characters just got so overloaded with this concept that it was like, all right, what do we do to combat this mechanic? Grappler was a huge one, because he was very good with white life, but due to how IS worked, in that it gives you a set amount of block frames, his tackle was now punishable by the whole cast, which it wasn't before. Um, a lot of block strings changed on a lot of characters. A lot of people will tell you that, like, my character actually loses this string because of IS. This string used to be safe. Now it's completely unsafe if you IS at the right part. It really changed a lot of what was good about that game. And at least for someone like me, there are other people who have different thoughts about it. It felt like the game it was a terrible decision. It just didn't felt like the game we initially, fell in love with and played.
It generally felt like it was a new game.
Yeah, it felt like such a, and like, I'm coming from all these other games I played, BlazBlue, Dragon Ball, friggin' Tekken, Street Fighter. Like, I had never seen a mechanic added to a game that was like, we're not just changing the neutral, we're drastically changing it. Like, this changes everything that's going on.
Let's see what DLC character were we on. We went over
So I
Spectre,
just said Spectre,
Brawler.
sorry.
Oh no, you're good.
Monk.
Spectre, Monk. Uh, what about Brawler? And then I guess we can hop into a little star girl over here, and then finish off with the Nen Nen.
Yeah, so Brawler was kind of a weird one. He definitely required a lot of lab work. Out of the gate, we noticed that he did a lot of damage, which was, it will make you a good character in that game if you can do a ton of damage. So his system that really confused people was how his barrels worked. They roll out, you hit them, they explode. They do a ton of chip, they do a ton of guard damage. So a lot of people were really confused on how to zone him, and there are matchups that can just blow up those barrels, but if you can't do something about the barrels, that character is always on you. It's basically like, people will overuse the term neutral skip. I have not seen a neutral skip like this. It is just these 3 barrels come out, you got to deal with them. If you have no way to deal with them, good luck. He's going to get in on you. People labbed out simple guard breaks for him. He has the fastest armor startup frame, I think at 4 frames, with his 4M, which is his cave-in. If you jump against him, it's a death sentence. If you get hit by almost anything he does, it's a death sentence. Optimal grappler or brawler play was mostly seen by like Divids, because he really liked that character and attached to it. And the damage potential of that character just off a light is like 50 to 60% on most of the cast, and he is just like a true 2-touch. That character's gross. Like, he's cool. Like, I like his design and everything, but he's got some really gross stuff.
That's on relief was a laugh too, bruh.
5S, yeah. That goes in that whole thing of like Spectre's whole problem is that you can't put characters into this game that have miserable recovery on their frame data because they just get rolled and die.
Okay. Then how about the little star girl here?
Battle Mage.
Oh, is this Battle Mage? Yeah.
Yep. Weird one. Character is genuinely seen as not very good. The reason for that is because there is a set which anyone can go find on YouTube. Just look up like Cow versus Ladon. It should be Striker versus Battle Mage. That character has a reactable DP to anyone who can cancel buttons into a DP. Because it is so slow. I think she has like a mid-20s startup for her DP. It is safe if she has 3 orbs. Her orbs are earned by combos or by charging them. So she's a character that builds resource to then be a like mid-tier character. It's really weird. She doesn't have conversions from the ranges of all of her normals that she needs. Cal really likes that character. I'm not a believer. I don't think that character is very good. Some people will say otherwise. I just don't think she fits into the scheme of the game. Her DP is okay. To give you an example, her DP is so reactable that when I was playing Striker at the time, and me and Cal were playing for the first time I had ever fought Battle Mage, I think it took like 2 games for me to be able to do strings and then just react with my DP against hers. Like, she didn't have a way out. Yeah, that character is something, man. I don't understand like why people, maybe they just like her design, but I think she's by far the weakest of the DLC and potentially one of the weakest in the game.
The best I could say from what others have painted a picture for her is she feels like a reset in the way of introducing a character, a combo-friendly character that is visually appealing, just like the marionette chick.
Enchantress, yep.
Yeah, just like Enchantress, but Enchantress kind of has a hard combo structure to her, logically speaking, because you're talking about a puppet character as the gimmick. So it's 2 for 1, as opposed to her in the same class where she has a more friendly or a beginner friendly combo structure to her, and the more that you open her up, the more her combo structure starts going down like a lot of damaging junk that she can do. Which, I mean, yeah, you have to probably play her optimally in order to get her close to the two touching argument. But presentation wise, I think she presents some of the more intriguing combos in the game that you can do, despite them probably not doing as much as other characters that do like out DPS her.
Yeah, and there's an argument to be made for that. I completely understand that, like, well, with resource, it's like the problem is getting the resources. And if your resource system is weird and takes like a knockdown or two to get to, you can no longer be that two-touch character. Like, you are locked in by your resource system, and that feels pretty bad in a game where it at least now where we're sitting, it's a pretty consistent 2 to 3 touch game, and I don't really understand like the passion for that character. I'm probably insulting every battle mage main right now, but like, yeah, I don't understand the like. She just falls into that area of me of like, why not just play Inquisitor? Why not just play Brawler? Why not just play this character? Like, she just, nothing she does feels extraordinary to me, or is like a solid game plan outside of like her JM is pretty good, I guess. But yeah, man, she's tough. Like, I give all the credit in the world to the people who actually win with her, because it's just like, I don't know how you make that character function.
Love and consistency.
Yeah, it's definitely a character love thing. I cannot understand it.
And then we arrive at the Nen Master.
Yeah, so my time playing against Nen Masters was mostly like some of the people that were pushing the character pretty hard early, like Angsty and Echo. I think Simon has a pretty good one too, but I never played him. Um, that character, man, yeah, she feels good, but she also feels like she may fall short a bit. Her install's really good. She gets projectile normals that get different ranges. She has an instant overhead. She definitely has this stuff that like you would think would make a good character, but she feels weird. It's almost like they were almost there to making a really good character, and then right at the drawing board they were like, yeah, but we could make Monk this better character. Uh, yeah, she looks fun. She feels okay, but I didn't really have an attachment to her. Definitely a weird addition.
I can see. Nen should have been in the game from the start.
That's, yeah, sure, why not? It's a lot of
Interesting
characters
argument.
that I thought it was okay. As a DFO player, let me give you a little backdrop onto character selection and why it's weird in this game. If you have played the DFO IP, it will come as very strange to you that this game did not release with a female Slayer. That is what Spectre would eventually be. She is part of the female Slayer class. That's her base class. Um, that character like rebounded DFO from a game that was like failing in like LAN cafes and places like that into a game that became extremely popular. She is seen as like Neopol's godchild. Like, they made that character specifically to get people back into the MMO. So when this game dropped and they didn't put in a female sword user, a female slayer, it was very bizarre. But they then they did two agents, which agents are like, that would be what troubleshooter and hitman would eventually be in their base class. That character's not very popular, so it was very much like, I wonder who tailored these character selections, because man, it was so weird we got two agents. I still look back at that and I'm like, troubleshooter's sick, and hitman's pretty cool, but it's so weird from like looking at the MMO, like, dude, nobody plays agents in that game. As someone who's experienced the high end, like, nobody's playing those characters. It's so weird.
Hmm. But I hear a lot of with all the 5 characters here. I definitely hear the most talk about from Spectre and from Nenmaster. So that's why I'm thinking, what was the game changer with them, or what's the patch that, or what the patch notes that came with them? Because the characters by themselves, I could see like Spectre feels kind of like a variation of a Yuzuriha kind of Johnny with using sword slash in order to cover reach, depending upon the variations of combo game, optimizing and non-optimizing altogether. And then you have this one here that feels very, very rushdowny with very high damaging reward.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough, you know, like Spectre specifically. I think it is just like the design of that character is very cool, and that gets people interested in her. But her the concepts of like how Spectre opens you up or how Spectre wins is that kind of like long range distance game plan where she just gets a hit eventually. You know, she's a pretty heavy zoner. In that aspect, she covers a lot of space, but her weaknesses are, like I said, it's a ton of like her recovery takes forever. Like there's so much stuff where it just takes forever for her to recover from, and you can just start closing space on her very fast. Nenmaster, like I said, I can see why people like that character. She has ways to skip projectiles. She has, you know, a good air move to check you if you know, are trying to keep her out. She has good ways to get in with conversion. But I don't know, man. There is a I mean, if we can get into it at some point, but there's a triangle called. It's a little bit of a joke, but I know people kind of take it somewhat seriously that I made about like what makes characters good in this game, and it's called the Mount Gap theory, where if you don't take advantage of 3 major systems, I don't consider you within like the top tiers at all. And those 3 systems are your usage of conversion, your chip damage, and your guard break potential. If you don't cover all 3 of those, I don't really think you're playing the same game that other characters are.
Okay.
So, in the case of a character like Ranger, let's say, okay, he has access to the ability to make his Gunhawk safe with conversion. So there's your perfect usage of CV, where CV becomes very good. He can make his slide safe with CV. He doesn't really have to take risks at long range. So pretty good on CV usage. Then you look at chip damage. Okay, well Gunhawk also does a lot of chip. It does a ton of your damage in chip. Um, Even if they block it, on top of the chip that's happening comes the guard damage. So you're asked to IS his guns to lower the guard damage, which that is part of what IS does. It's supposed to lower the guard damage. But to IS his guns perfectly, you have to IS before the last explosion goes off. It's a little tough. You can lab it, but you can do it. But results may vary. A lot of people say that they can do it, then they go to a tournament and they can't do it. It's very tough timing. So he does all 3 of these things very well. It is very consistent to for most people to place him in like the top 5 because he does all these things well, and he also has like pretty egregious options like being the only character who has a dash cancelable normal on whiff.
Hmm.
And since the game has been out, it's like explaining that if your character wins without ever actually hitting the character, like you just make them block, you're probably pretty close to top tier because you have this ability to you have to make them make a decision. They can't just block forever. And the more their risk rises with that, the higher the chance of you getting a hit is, and that's what really plays the game for you. So these characters aren't just playing a game where like I'm gonna out neutral you and hit you. I'm gonna, you know, guess your normal and whiff punish you. It's very much like I'm just gonna make you block, and then if I'm right, you die.
Oh, that sounds like some Guilty Gear shit when I'm low on tension.
Yeah, it's very much like the amount of chip damage that someone takes from something like a Gunhawk string is, you know, it can be 30-40% of your life. And the next hit, as long as they use an M move in that combo, which is universal, it's everyone's going to use an M move in a combo, it's going to strip all that life. So you have these guys who are like, yeah, one of the things I really like to hear in this game is people will be like, my character's low damage but high chip. But if they get the hit, it doesn't matter. That damage is now converted. You did 300 damage in chip. Okay, your starter for that combo is now doing 300 damage to start because you've stripped all that chip away.
Throughout each of the metas that was offered through the DLCs, uh, I guess what do you think the character what do you feel like people resonated with the most, or like out of each five of them, because each five of them had like a different version of the game I guess they were playing, or well, I mean I can answer the question generally, is what version of the game do you feel like is like was a high point for the game?
For me, it was definitely my personal take, which I will gladly not take as everyone else's, is post Swift nerf was the best version of the game because the way that characters were set up felt really good. But that's a personal take. I didn't play Launcher, for example. Launchers are not going to think that's a good version of the game. It was miserable for them. Um, so I think the agreed upon middle ground for a lot of people is Grand Balance patch felt about the best, which was right before the Spectre, DLC and patch. A lot of people point to that as like, game felt really good. It felt balanced to a degree. There was not a lot of extraordinarily broken situations happening. There were some, obviously. The game always had some kind of situation that was really messed up. But yeah, there was like a working, there IS wasn't introduced, you didn't have back roll yet, like characters still functioned on a certain level, even though like the lower tiers probably felt pretty bad. But that version of the game definitely felt like they hit a good balance angle where they needed to stop and like let that be the norm.
Okay. Next question. Were communications ever really seen into with the developer Nexon, or establishing communication, or with them establishing communications with the audience or consumer? If so, how was it?
Yeah, miserable. We'll just get that out of the way. Miserable communication. You had a lot of people, and I know that a lot of people were working behind the scenes. I know Jax, Vex, and Resby, and some of the network guys were working behind the scenes on their end. We had a lot of the grind guys trying to get information on offlines and at events from people. I think Mystic, specifically Mystic, was the big one who got us like basically that like, hey man, Spectre, she's coming, and they're definitely taking, they're asking how the game played from these guys who got to the Arc World Tour and what they could change about it. So it felt like there was kind of this back and forth, like, and anyone will tell you, I dare you to find a person who was like, guard breaks are fine. Not a single person wanted them in the game. And we were like fighting for that, like, don't, these guard breaks are miserable. Nobody wants to get punished this bad for blocking. You can leave the chip in. If I take, 70% from a combo because the chip was built up, that's reasonable. I didn't, play active defense or something, but the guard break sequences were terrible. Even in Grand Balance patch, it was too much for some characters. But it every patch that they would design after that felt like they never took those. They added IS as like an anti guard break measure, but then didn't really understand the intricacies of guard breaks. So a lot of stuff that guard breaks you that you're supposed to IS also leaves the person plus so that they just continue their pressure. A lot of people will know this as like the striker issue, where like if striker sees you ISing, it doesn't stop her pressure. You have to RPS. Like it's crazy. Um so their understanding of like the actual groaning points of what was going on in DNF was terrible. It really felt like the developer didn't listen. people were on there, and like you said with the people with the PlayStation problem, we had the same issue with PC like a year later or something, where like people were getting disconnected and were having issues,
No
and
way.
they're oh yeah, this happened. I want to say post Spectre patch. Someone can definitely correct me on that. But I remember people being like, "Yeah, we can't really link up. There's like something going on with the online," and it like went on for a while. And just nothing, man. There was no communication. There was no like, no saving rope for us. Like nothing. They were just like, "Well, we'll eventually talk about this, but you guys aren't going to know when." And that's what every announcement and patch felt like. Like someday we're going to do something about this. Just wait, and no communication.
How do you think the company even did business or did their business? Because I feel like because it felt like a lot of points where they just felt fiscally irresponsible with the consistency aspect.
Yeah, it was weird. It was really weird. There was a lot of stuff that like I can't speak on behalf of whatever the company was doing. I'm not that guy, but at least on the floor level where people were saying they were talking to the devs or having conversations with Nexon or going back and forth with them, it felt like they kind of got it, but kind of didn't. Like, they hear our concerns, but they're not sure how to implement systems to help us. So their concept was, as funny as it is, like throw $1,000 into a pot, they'll forget about it. It's like that's not an answer.
Hmm. Unfortunately, no. Next question. In your experience, when do you think the game actually died?
So I actually had, I think, I can go on record as saying this, and maybe I'm incorrect, so sorry for anyone who disagrees with this. I had the last offline with a pot bonus in it, at least above a certain amount. I had a $250 pot bonus for King of Upstate 2024 for DNF. That was basically like a farewell. I told everyone that was coming like after they showed up because I had signed up. There were only like 8 entrants, but once again I will give shout outs to Angsty Dragoon, Luful, GoldenEye, um, Black Star came from Buffalo, and then my scene. Some guys entered, and we had like an 8-man bracket. Thank you all for supporting that. I know that it wasn't going to be a big deal, but I was basically using it as a huge send off. I told everyone that showed up that like just so you know, I'm done after this. Like I told oh, Pineapples was there too. I got to give him his flowers too. But
Pineapple
yeah, like I
Hour, FGC?
no, just Pineapples. He does. I think he's Pineapples Cast on Twitch. He's a Rochester player. Great guy. But yeah, I told all of them, I was like, just so you know, I'm done after this. Like, I think DNF is probably too far gone. But I wanted to give everyone one last, like, hey, if you travel out to this, I got a $250 pop bonus for you for DNF. Come play. Let's put on a show, and then I can put this game to rest. Saying that, like, I think that was most likely the last offline that offered, like, a big cash prize.
Okay, what day was that? What was the time frame?
Oh, God, you're putting me on King of Upstate 4. That was, I want to say June, July? No, August, right? Yeah, I think we were August. August of last year, 2024. Checking right now. I'm in the actual planning Discord for the event, so I can just go check the old one.
Oh, I was just looking at attack from all sides.
Yeah, that works too. Yeah, you can probably see when King of Upstate 2024 was.
Hey, there's the homie Indra.
Hey, my boy, what's up?
Megaton Meltdown.
Oh, okay, I got it. June 8th of 2024.
Okay, okay. June 8th of 2024. Okay, so all through the latter half of last year, so some the summer area basically. summertime region. I guess is about the time when it started wrapping up for this.
Yeah, I mean, you started to see a pretty good fall off of people with the last patch. I think people call it the NEN patch. I'm not really sure what we call it, but it's the most recent patch we're on.
Then that would be
Um,
Nen.
yeah, so no, because there was a patch after that, right? Yeah, we had like the after Monk patch or whatever. Because I know Monk got slightly, quote unquote, slightly nerfed. But yeah, that patch before, so it would have been, I think it would have been the NEN patch. Uh, you saw a super big drop in entrance online. You saw a big drop in people asking for games because obviously you'd go into the grind Discord and you'd just see people like popping up and pinging and pinging. And then for me, like the final nail in the coffin to where I just didn't reinstall the game was I think it was around October or so that I realized that nobody that I was, meeting in real life on offline events had any interest in playing DNF, and I was like, well, got Tekken, I got, I got these other games I can be playing. I'll just take a small break. Me personally, I'm looking forward to 2XKO and Garou right now. I'll play City of the Wolves probably, but I took like a huge step back and was pretty done with it, and told everyone like, yeah, I don't even have it installed anymore.
Okay. Oh, and chat for reference, this was that event that they were talking about with GoldenEye and Pineapples and Luful, the homie locked up.
Yeah, big ups for those guys for making it out. I know they took time out of their day to come play in 8-person bracket, but we had a really good time at the after party and at the hotel and everything. And there's a really good picture of us in the grind Discord all hanging out, and I used that as like my big send off. I didn't really play the game after that.
Gotcha. And it's mainly the atmosphere that brought everybody together. That was the main thing along with the game was the atmosphere the game created.
Yeah, it really, like, there were certain points in DNF's history where it felt like it was just you against everyone in the FGC half the time, which is stupid. Looking back on it, it's very silly. It should never feel that way, but between the wave of like content creators, you got your influencers or whatever the hell you want to call them, the FGC. These people aren't really that big of personalities, but just everyone was shitting on this game, man. So eventually you just became this community of like, yeah, let's prove them wrong. Like, let's have fun with this game because we all do, and we're all having a good time. So what the hell does it matter?
That's the whole damn point. And that was another thing some people were explaining to me about. So, sub question: why were there more people bashing on this game than trying to love this game? It made no sense to me why there's more people that were just talking crap about this game as opposed to using that same platform and that same energy to talk on how is this game still alive, or hey, there's still people that are still hosting this bad boy. Let's see if we can revive this shit.
I think it must have been initial impressions were so off from, Swift, which we already covered. But I also think initial impressions were so off because a lot of your talking heads of the FGC were so negative about it initially. And it was just like, okay, these people have feelings, these people have thoughts, that's fine, but like there were some very serious like people out there on Twitter saying that like DNF fans are just so annoying. I keep telling them that their game is dying because I want them to respond to me, and it's just like I don't understand what you gain from doing that other than being a weirdo. Like there's nothing, there's nothing to prove that like yeah, man, it is polarized for me of someone of 20 years of playing fighting games. It is so bizarre that the community folded on this game. If you ask like KangasKhanh and the AFAS crew and a lot of them about DNF, they will tell you kind of the same answer of like, I wish people kept playing it because it was a really cool game. And like my scene really liked it and we adored that game. And it was cool to have like GoldenEye and Pineapples and Blackstar and like all these other people from around the region enjoy this game. But man, it felt like everywhere you looked on any kind of social media or YouTube or anything, like if people could take an opportunity to dunk on DNF, they were doing it. And it was so weird to me because no other game except for the only one I can always think of is Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Kind of got that like initial blowout, like we hate this game, we all stand against it, we talk bad about it as much as you possibly can, and it's like, bro, this is weird. You're all just weird. Like this, it doesn't make any sense to hate on it like this.
Damn. And I remember they hate that the Street Fighter game crossover got once upon a time. Some, only a small bit of it may have been justifiable, but not all of that. I mean, it was just an idea that was a beautiful shot in the dark. People loved it, people hated it, but it made an impact. It got people talking, and it made the foundation for other ideas that Street Fighter and uh, what was the other thing that it crossed with?
Tekken.
And Tekken that they both built on. And hell, it made cameos and references later on down the line. So it was a bad idea that was executed rather well.
Yeah, so the irony of the DNF hate for me, which I will always bring up in conversation because it's an interesting talking point. Think about DNF as a whole, right? This game released, it had no plans for DLC initially that we knew of. It was coming out, and they didn't confirm it for any kind of live service. It came out with a base roster of, what did we have, 14, 16 characters? I forget the exact number. We had a lot more than most FGC games first release with. Very rarely to see a game other than like a tag fighter have that many characters. Comes out with a full fleshed out cast. And the first thing people complain about outside of Swift, you probably know the answer to this, is what's the roadmap? What's the plan? What's the season pass? Go back 10 years ago, and what were people complaining about with Street Fighter Cross Tekken? Oh, there's DLC on the disc. Oh, they're going to charge us for more characters. Oh, all this is they're going to patch stuff. Like, oh, this was, from my generation, the biggest thing you could do as a fighting game developer to piss people off was do, like, follow-up DLCs. Nobody wanted to pay $5 for the character they had to lab. This was, like, a cardinal sin 10 years ago. Now, people go into these games and they're like, I expect a full season pass. I expect to see future characters. I want a roadmap. And I'm just sitting there like, what happened to the people who were happy with the game releasing in the initial state? Why did they disappear?
Good point. It's like, did they just go underground, or they just have a different take, or we are
It is,
content?
I think for most people, especially if you ask older players, it is so weird that it is now expected for every game to come out, have a season planned, have a hype trailer for the next character, have an event that announces an announcement, which announces another announcement to announce an announcement.
Fighter
And
shit,
then,
chat.
yeah, and then finally gets to, like, oh, this is the character. And it's like, we hated that. Like, it feels like, I'm old, right? So it feels like less than 5 years ago, but it was at least 10 years ago. We hated that shit. We wanted the game to be the game. But this game comes out and is that, and these same people who have definitely been in the FGC 10, 15, 20 years are immediately shitting on it. And I'm just like, but this is what we hated. It is the weirdest 180 I've ever seen in my life.
Mm. Chat, I don't know what to tell you. Oh, hang on, someone's telling me something. Hang on. People that are expecting season passes, TC, in fighting games fell down the consumer rabbit hole.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it is a general like hive mind of we are expecting this now, so we must accept it. And it's like, okay, but if you just want to release a fighting game with some cool mechanics and like maybe balance patch it but not add in additional characters so I only have to lab 12 characters, I'm happy with that personally. I got a job. I don't have a ton of time. Like, let me lab 10 characters and learn how to play this game, and I'm happy, man. It's so confusing to me. I'll never get it.
Hmm. All right, well, consumer rabbit hole. It might just be. You might just be onto something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can call it a rabbit hole, I guess. That's fair. But to me, it's just like, it kind of shows how the FGC has shifted drastically in the past, 10, 15 years from this idea of we would really like the developers to stop taking advantage to us to like, yeah, you can take advantage to us, just give me a cool character for DLC. And it's like, all right,
Perspectives versus
sure.
morals versus ideology. Like just pick one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to wonder why we shifted away from morals, but I mean, hell, I guess if you're gonna sell your soul for a sexy character or for skins that you really want for a character you're okay playing, who am I to say you're doing a bad job until you release that shitty patch?
Yeah, and the weird thing with this game is the way that the DLC was timed and everything. The fiscal level, the financial responsibility feels weird too, right? Because there's no way that they looked at the sales of this game and were like, we're gonna make a killing on DLC. Like they had to have seen the numbers were not great,
So
but then they released the DLC anyway.
June 13th. So that was right in the middle of 2024. I'm trying to remember what I was. If one of my mods are around, what was I doing around this time frame? Because I remember the previews were like hot all over with Nedmaster. I cannot remember what I was doing there, but I remember like it was it was the next DLC character. I didn't know she was the last one at the time, but there was a lot going on at that point. So I mean, because like
Well,
she,
Monk was the last DLC.
oh, I thought
Nen was
Nedmaster was the last one.
nope, Nen was second to last. Monk was last. Because that's when everyone realized that like whatever Monk was some kind of amalgamation of shit we didn't like in the game was now being added into the game.
Ooh, hang on, wait. Let me look at the roadmap. Hang on. July 12th, I remember that. September 4th, yeah, that was right before my birthday. December, right, we did get the new map. March 14th was Monk. June 13th was Nen. Wait, why are these so close together? What the fuck? March, April, May, June. Wow, damn. Moroku wasn't lying. He wasn't bullshit. You really didn't really have a lot of time to really settle in the Monk. As soon as you settle in the Monk, boom, Nen's here. It really doesn't give you a lot of time to really let the lay of the land settle. Before it's like, whoop, shifts again.
Yeah, I think their need to consistently push these characters out was definitely taking over the balance aspects too.
Okay. Next question. In your opinion, if DNFDuel was released today, exactly as it is, do you feel the game has a chance on today's market?
No, I think it probably has the same chance it did when it dropped. Let me follow that up. I just gotta step away for like 5 seconds.
Not a problem. All right, chat, we're going to take a breaky poo. For the 12, 15 viewers that are still tuning in here from the Khalil raid, I appreciate you guys coming through. If you guys like what's going on here, you guys like the handle, subscribe to the channel and all that stuff here on Twitch. Or if you want to, you can do exclamation YouTube. You can tune into my YouTube channel where these podcast sessions will be at one point or another. They will all be there along with my general content with everything I do here at the Iacon Battle Circuit or just my general channel in general. And we just keep going down the rabbit hole of these podcasts in order to further unravel the mystery of what is going on in the fighting
Okay,
game
sorry
community.
about that.
Oh no, you good. I'm just doing some promo work. Hang on, the ad should be finished in another minute, so that way I can go on ahead and we can resume. We can resume then in another minute.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. My cat was getting into some stuff. I had to go shoo him.
Hey, it's all good. He's either got to eat or he's got to sit down. One or the other. Or in the case of my friend, whenever we're sitting here and we're doing My Hero in the background, his cat just comes up out of nowhere on the mic and then just sits on him. But you can literally hear the
Yeah, I know
purring
that
on the
one.
mic.
Oh my god, we joke about it because me and Taco have cats that like jump on us when we play fighting games. It's so obnoxious.
Yeah. Because you can hear it when it pulls up. It's just like it sounds. You just hear this massive purring. It's like, hey, your engine's pulling up. All right. Should be ending in 30 seconds, chat. Who's still out there in chat? If you guys aren't affected by the ads, which I thank you. I've been trying to work on the density issue there, so that way we can get the most out of this without it delving into too much ads that they just keep chalking at you. Unless they're good ads, which I hope that they are. Yeah, that's the only thing I wish that Twitch could actually update. That way you can control like what type of ads people are getting. Because I shit you not, like I came across a really good Chipotle ad that actually just put me in the mindset that I really want Chipotles right now. You could have like the right food ad that comes on at the right time. You actually are selling something. Okay, here we go. All right, it's finished. All right. All right. Here we shall continue. So, to reiterate the question, in your opinion, if DNFDuel was released today, do you feel the game has a chance on today's market value? Today's market.
Yeah. So, no, I don't. I do think that. So if we're saying like, okay, if it releases and we have the same conversation with the development team, the same issues with the communication, there's no shot, man. Like it was very much the community did its best. Nobody in the community deserves blame or should ever be blamed. We tried to do what we could for this game. The communication between the developers and the offline community was an absolute failure, and it was definitely on the developers' part. A lot of our community leaders who took it upon themselves to host events, your Khalils, your Yipes, TNS, all these people did do what they could and reach out and try to figure out like what you want us to do. But if the dev team is just not willing to communicate or doesn't understand like the market they're releasing a game into, I don't really think there's much you can do. I don't want to be a doomer about it, but I mean, this community is going to keep having events, even now. The fact that there's still TNSs popping up for this game is incredible. That there are even people that can stand the constant down talk of the game and play it.
It makes you wonder, and chat it like same thing. It also makes you wonder, just like what type of creative hypocrisy are we dealing with here? Where you talk shit about something, but you still engage it and mess with it. Like what are you doing? Like you're just trying to get a reaction, you're just taking the rage bait route.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's just weird. It's just very weird. You can do so many other things. You don't have to interact with these people, but so many people felt like they needed to go out and I don't know, borderline harass these players. And it was like, who cares? Like it's not your game, dude. Like what does it matter?
Exactly. Next question, which can kind of tax onto that. Um, what changes would you propose gameplay wise to make it better or appealing for newer players to come?
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Um for okay. Man, it's tough because I have to separate myself as like from going from being a tournament playing player top aiding to like a casual aspect.
Well,
I
hang
think
on.
the
Let me
big
bookmark it
thing.
here. You can delve into both perspectives if you like.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So from a competitor, I think that general changes to role are probably necessary. The game flows strangely when the game is predicated on a invincible idea that doesn't have like there's risks to rolling obviously, but there's a lot of the cast that can't make you feel like you're taking a risk for rolling. So rolling would probably have to be changed. I don't care if it's frame 2 or frame 3 in vulnerability. You should not be able to safe jump on some characters and not punish a roll. There are characters that suffer from that, and it's really weird that they do. just because they can't guess the side of the roll. That just feels really weird. I don't really know another fighting game. Like, if you can think of one, by all means, tell me. But I don't know of another fighting game that's like, you press this button, you're not counter hit state, and you can just get away if you guess the right direction. It is very strange to me. I would probably rework how IS works. I think IS is a good system in theory. I think maybe definitely nullify guard damage. Don't use the resource of giving white life, because it's supposed to feel like a risk if you're spending your white life to prevent yourself from taking guard damage, but it's more of a buff for a lot of characters because now they get to use something when your string ends to kind of get a YRC in neutral and get out. That system feels very whack. IS does not feel good in a lot of matchups. It feels like a terrible design for a lot of characters that struggle with that. Yeah, those would be my big ones. Is probably remove invulnerability on rolls and rework IS. From a beginner standpoint, the game needs more risk and gaps in its block strings. This could kind of go both ways. You could see this as a high level issue as well. There are a lot of times, I'm sure, that beginners, because they don't know the options or because they're not aware of the counterplay, where you can just get caught in a block string that feels like you're blocking forever. And even if you stumble upon, your DP or your roll, it can feel very suffocating to be put in pressure for that long. So the game definitely needs ways to, pressure needs to stop or have obvious signs that it's either over or they're doing something to extend it in a weird way, like jump canceling, which you could obviously DP if you know a little bit about the game. Yeah, it's tough for beginners, man. I can't even imagine trying to play this game right now as one. It probably feels pretty bad, at least early on, trying to figure out all the anti and counterplay options.
That is the hard part, because I'm trying to think. I made the comparison here. I made the comparison off stream at another time, but it's the same mindset in trying to pick up a game that has so much tech to it, like a cross tag, or before Guilty Gear's changes that they had going into this season, had they kept it the same, that whole era of Guilty Gear Strive, or trying to get into like a Marvel type of environment now. Like wow, it can be like a really huge detriment to natural growth. Trying to find someone at your level and then go on that journey of self-discovery and growth together. It's an almost impossible task.
Yeah, I can't. That's always been the issue with legacy games, though. We had that in Third Strike a lot, where people who were trying to pick up Third Strike years in were just like,
Oh,
"What do you
that
mean
too,
I have to
Avatar.
learn like
Yeah, that too.
I have to learn like 7 different defensive OSs?" And it's like, yeah, there are people now who know so much about the game that I don't really know how you catch up, and it can be very daunting for new players to because not every new player is going to want to win a tournament, maybe they just want to play around. But when you hop on ranked, and it's like the people who are playing ranked are people who've been playing this game for since the day it came out,
Yeah,
that's
that's like,
tough.
yeah, you're literally going from fighting another casual to fighting business.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a whole other step up that you got to ask for yourself in applying so much stuff that you don't even know,
Yeah. Yeah.
or struggling adapting to and absorbing.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's also like,
Like I will give the higher ups in some of these communities some credit, not to cut you off. I will give some of the higher ups some credit because some games like this or Blaze Blue do have those very bluntly noticeable skill gaps, and they do try to close the gaps as best as they can.
right, right.
On day one, it is already bad enough. People gatekeep. Those are factors every once in a while. It depends on the community. Those are factors, yes. Avatar Prince. Not in every community, but those are some factors that do undertone uh, gaps, yes. Well, I mean, fighters community, for instance, did have that issue a couple of its eras that we're trying to fix now in the present one.
What's that exactly?
Oh, Invol
Oh, the comment
involun
I'm seeing here. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yep.
that particular thing that does contribute to a blunt skill gap that is managed. It's able to be controlled and dealt with, but the problem is that the people before my generation in that games community did not do
Yeah, it's tough when your game is we you'll always have this issue because we have it in upstate a bit where like people get into tech and we're like a grandfathered in tech and community. I'm seen as like an anime guy, but even I know a ton of Tekken and can place, top three in our brackets. But you get new people coming in and they're like, well, where do I start? And it's like, well, where do you want to start? It's a lot. You have to, and we always tell people because Tekken's obviously a completely different beast, but we'll tell them like there is just so you know, like you're gonna struggle a lot, and there's no one's gonna lie to you and tell you that like you're gonna be the best next week. It's not gonna happen that way. So making sure that I think that being blunt with newer players and just telling them straight up, like, you know, you're going to see advancement, but it's not going to be crystal clear to you. And then one day it's going to click is the best you can go about it because, I mean, hell, man, that's how I got better. Like, it's tough. Fighting games are hard. And anyone who tells you otherwise is lying to you. Like, they can try to make it sound easy, dumb it down for you. But yeah, there's a lot of people who think that, like, good players, not wanting to play sets is like a sign of gatekeeping. And to me, I don't know, man, like a lot of new players have told me straight up that like playing against me doesn't feel like they're learning anything. And it's like, then you need to stop playing against me and play someone who's near your level. Because I don't know what the answer is because everyone has a different take on it. Everyone's experience is unique. And a
that.
lot
Yeah,
of the fighting game players out there will say like, I got better because I got, the shit kicked out of me for 10 years by better players. And then other people will be like, well, I'm a perfect example of this. I didn't have a community when I first started playing competitively. I didn't really like, our Syracuse community was very small. And I jumped into Street Fighter 4 in that scene as the best player on the scene because I had people like Seth I played online who were fantastic players. And it's like, well, the onus is a little bit on you as the competitive player to play these people and explain to them your thoughts and how to get better. But everyone's journey is different. Some people it just clicks. Some people they have to grind thousands of hours in the lab. Some people can just jump into a game and be really good. And no new player is going to have that experience. But then how do you get them to understand that like the best you can tell them, and like I'm completely blunt with every new player I run into, especially offline, that like it's going to take a long time and it's going to suck. Like you're going to lose a lot. That's okay because everyone here has experienced it.
yeah, and I mean it's the first step in the growing process. As hard as it is, and as hard as it is going to get from here on out. But you got people that got your back that can help you with learning the tech in order to try and help you with the mental neutral skip. That way, the more you
Yeah,
absorb it and the more it feels natural, then you'll just be climbing the ladder like hotcakes.
man, there's so many of these, and I'll have my old man in the backyard moment here, so just let me have it.
Yeah,
But there are so many newer players in the fighting game community that I've met who are exceptional players, and I won't name them, but these we're talking people who like top eight brackets consistently here. And I have to have conversations with them about how like, hey man, don't push yourself. Like you do very well in these online brackets, and you're fantastic. And then they go offline and they perform very poorly. And it's like that's what our locals are about. It's not about you sweeping the bracket every week. It's about like knowing what it means to be in person. And I always worry about these guys who really only have these online experiences. And it's like, yeah, man, like everything changes. And you have to understand that like it's a community. We're all here. Most people are, 90% of the FGC I've met offline, chill people. I get along with them great. And you need to understand that like it's not your story. This is a community. It's everyone's. We all share in this together. And at the end of the day, if like you're not comfortable with losing, with having to learn, with, improving as a player and a person, mind you, like a lot of people seem to forget that part that like it's not about just improving as a player. You got to be a better person too. I could really just like I could go on for hours about how much these people need this advice more than anything that like the people you're surrounding yourself with are going to be the people you're going to be seeing for a long time, and that's okay, and you should probably get to know them.
Absolutely. It's how you expand your social circle. Contacts, familiarity, comfortability. A lot of stuff starts from just that. Yeah, online and offline, two different ball games. Yeah, they're two different behemoths of interaction.
Yeah, like I'm not a big fan of doing online tournaments because I feel like I'm stuck at home doing nothing. But I did it because I really liked the game. But yeah, man, if I could go to my online, we have consistent offlines, and it's so nice just to see everyone and just go, man, just go have fun. And I try to stress this to people so much, and I'll say it time and time again that like you gotta look at this as a hobby. Anytime someone comes up to you and tells you that they made enough money from the FGC to like not work is lying to you. Like it's not gonna happen, man. It doesn't happen for anyone. Like you gotta enjoy this. You gotta enjoy the ride. You gotta enjoy the journey. You're really hurting yourself if you're not just having fun.
Yeah. Fun is the child of curiosity. Or other way around, one of the two. But anyway, you get the metaphor I'm talking about, chat. Let me see here. I do believe we covered it all. Chat, are there any questions or comments or concerns you guys would also like to ask Ladon while we are here?
I appreciate you correcting it. It's okay, man. It's literally I had yipes. I have my scene doing it every now and again where they're just like Ladon, right? And it's like no, just so the chat knows as well. It's Ladon. I know a lot of people confused. It's pronounced Ladon. It's okay. I don't really mind. It doesn't bother me. It's been 20 years, man. I've been dealing with this forever.
So I had to catch myself. Want to at least make sure I could give you a break today. I got one? Okay, Avatar Prince, shoot ahead. And then we'll go on ahead and respectfully conclude the podcast. And then whoever it is on that you would like to raid, we'll go ahead and send the journey of DNF to them. Oh, but yeah, what's your question? Also, on that note, chat, I also want you to go ahead and follow Ladon as you can here on his official Twitter, X, whatever they want to call it. But you can go ahead and follow him here. Avid poster. Want to follow him here, and also follow the sister station that was also referenced, the King of Upstate, or Attack of All Sides. You can also follow that one over in Syracuse, New York.
Yeah, Attack from All Sides is our offline scene. We're actually having King of Upstate next month, April 12th. It's just a one-day event, if you're in the greater Syracuse area, by all means. I also understand if you don't want to fly out. We do this event every year. We have a good time. We partner with local vendors. We have a really good setup right now with a local place that lets us do all PC setups. We're very blessed to have that. And then the TO, KangasKhanh, also owns a video game store pretty close by that we all go and hang out after.
I think I passed it somewhere. Oh, here we go. AFK KangasKhanh. Yep, and this is also one of his colleagues, KangasKhanh. Kangas, as they call him.
Yeah, Kangler, Sun, we all call him Sun.
Ooh. Let's see, what was the question? Why are people so fixated on copying each other in that type of game? Okay, well, let's start with that one. Um, why are people so fixated on copying each other's combos? If I had to guess, and I mean he'll answer it in his own as best as he can from his perspective. If I had to guess, it has to do with the perspective of like what would be like your ideal confirm combo, or an ideal B&B, or your punish combo, and then we'd probably bury from there. I don't know how expressive DNFDuel's gameplay structure is, and
Yeah, DNF's like combo system is pretty much kind of like universal routing. A lot of the stuff you're doing for potential Oki, which is knockdown pressure, or any kind of like damage enders and things like that. DNF isn't super expressive. A lot of the combos are virtually the same, and that's mostly because like you have to have an M move thrown in there because any white life you've generated from normals has to be stripped eventually. And then a lot of the time, like you'll plan for being mana positive or mana negative, and it really depends on the character. But yeah, like I know for a fact that grapplers combos were pretty much one route only. We didn't have a lot of ways to go. But there were like tricky stuff you could do. Like there were people who really wanted to do grapplers one frame link, which was technically an infinite for a long time. But everyone I saw do it, and the reason I didn't do it, would drop it eventually. And I was just like, I'm not going to do that because that's not tournament safe to me.
fair enough. Because if it wasn't, I guess the key thing there is like if you do it enough to where it feels like it's consistent every single time you do it, then it's tournament legal. Like in our
Yeah,
minds,
yeah.
yeah.
If you're they're called tournament combos for a reson. It's like if you're under high stress, can you hit this combo no matter what? And like that's why characters who have very basic combos and very basic game plans, people hover towards them because if you're competing, you don't have to think about it. It's just gonna happen.
Right, because if you have to think about it while you're thinking about what they're doing, then that would lead to overthinking and you might lose.
Exactly. Yeah. Very very big risk to not be um your own like if you can be a specialist by all means. You can be the guy who does the funky combos. It's just a lot of the times the guys doing those combos aren't the ones winning tournaments because like, hey, it was really specific to this character and I forgot that and I dropped the combo and I died is like a very common thing.
Okay, that was one. And the other question, let me look, let me look. Oh, creating their own combo. How come hardly anyone creates their own combos and takes the risk of finding out new stuff? For this game, though, I want to say that it probably wasn't a flowchart for a lot of the cast because there are those few characters that do have their own like availability of kind of custom comboing, and then you can productively mess around and find out. Like the DLC chick over here, the little mage girl over here. That was one of the ones I was referencing earlier on in the podcast segment, where she kind of has like a whole melting pot of combos and different ways that she can optimize and get setups and stuff. That's very fascinating, which can get you into a gene pool of originality for how you want to do a lot of different combos and whatnot that other people probably won't do or won't do the same way. And well, yeah, she's not as alluring at first or as powerful as all the others on the ticket for the DLC pass. I still think her combos stand as one of the more creative ones on the ticket.
Oh, I like this follow up. Yeah, I'm reading it right now. So I'm here to tell you, Avatar, that if someone is telling you that you're not playing the character right, but it feels good to you and you're getting wins, you're playing the character right. Hate to break it to you.
Yeah,
Yeah, the people who will tell you that are mostly upset because something's going on that they're not understanding, or they're more of a calculating player, and maybe you're more of like a play by heart player. But yeah, most people will say that like oh this character, this is what you have to do, and this is how you have to play it. But the best players in the world are finding new ways to pilot their character every day. So you can't just take how the game is telling you to play the character as gospel because there's probably 1,000 different ways. Unorthodox player. I'm an unorthodox player. Like I said, people thought my character was trash. They thought it was garbage out of the gate. And people wanted to say he was one of the worst characters in the game, and they didn't understand how to play him, and then I solved how to play that character.
Power of problem solving.
Yeah, the power.
Grappler.
If you sit in the lab and you sit in training mode and you really start to break down what your character is and how you want to pilot it, you're either going to come to the conclusion that you don't want to play this character because it doesn't fit how you want to play, or you're going to play the character different. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It just depends on like what kind of crowd you're talking about, though. If you're, if you see some guy go up there and he's winning like every major tournament with your character and you can't figure out how, then it's probably time to really look into how that person's playing. I don't know. I always usually lead by example, but I had to figure out so much with Grappler because there were not a ton of people to do. And then before I knew it, I was the guy winning stuff with Grappler. I was the guy placing with Grappler. And so all the tech was coming from me. And that's a weird place to be when you're that good at a character that like you don't have anywhere to go. I would have to talk to Tragic or Davids or these other grapplers and be like, hey, have you guys experimented with this? Like, have you come up with this? And those discussions are worth, thousands of minutes and hours of grinding time.
Any other questions out there, chat? Let moi see. See a lot of people over on Monster Hunter World.
It's very very busy game right now. Yeah, it's fun.
You're not wrong. Hell, you're making me want to get back into this. Cause like, damn, I gave it up after I gave up Monster Hunter World. This actually might get my insect glaive out of retirement. Cause I used to be an insect glaive person.
Oh, gotcha. Yep. I heard it's really good right now.
Ooh. Wish I can join in on the VC. Let me know if you want to hit up a podcast segment at some point, and then we can just delve down the rabbit hole of some stuff. Just let me know the topic that you want to delve into, and I got you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got stories for years, but most of it centers around like Upstate and getting a scene that was struggling back onto its feet. Yeah, I've played all sorts of different games. Like I said, the Indra thing was crazy. Because that was my boy, and seeing him become so good was just like, it's like that proud dad moment. I would never call him my son, but that's like a proud dad moment where you're just like, dude, I'm so glad you got good at this game because I knew you could be.
Same, because I joined because I remember when I first came into the scene, he was one of the first dudes I ever met in Dragon Ball FighterZ when I first came into the scene.
Yeah, great guy, and
good guy.
It was funny
personality.
I'll give you the quick story of that if you just want to have this anecdote to throw around because it's so funny to me.
Sure.
He showed up to an offline event. I'll probably hop out after this, but he showed up to an offline event. He played some like, I don't know. You know how you have those events occasionally that are just like casual get-togethers, like meet the community and we're gonna like go have some food and something and play some games. Well, we have those around here with a guy named Kenyon, and he was having one, and Indra showed up, and he thought that like our top like of the line fighting game players were gonna be there, and he beat everyone, and I wasn't there. And so my boy Mordred, I don't know if you know Mordred, he plays like Uni and stuff like that. He's a big anime player.
That name sounds super familiar. I haven't ran into him yet, but if I play enough Uni, I might run into him at some point.
Yeah,
I'll let you know.
He's a character, that's for sure. That's my boy Elijah. But yeah, so he comes back to me and he's like, hey, this dude is talking crazy. And he shows me like, Facebook posts where this guy's like, man, Syracuse ain't got no competition. I gotta move out of here. Dragon Ball's free. Like, I'm the best and no one can beat me. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? And he's like, he goes by Indra. He plays like 21 and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, well, shit, man, okay. So I was like, okay, message him back, set up a first to 10. and tell him that if he, can't pay for it or whatever, I'll pay his entry. Like, I want to play first to 10 with this guy. So we go and we play a first to 10, and I win. Like, I think it's like if it's not 10-1, it's close to 10-1. It's really bad. And I start talking to him, and I'm like, I know you're probably heated right now because you probably didn't come here expecting to lose to me. But I'm not really one of those guys that goes out and brags about like how good he is or gets a lot of time to compete and stuff. But I've been playing for however many years. This is what you need to do because I think you're actually a pretty good player. You just got to fix a few things. We then play the actual bracket, and he beats me in the bracket. He beats me like 3-2, I think. And I'm like, damn. And he's like, oh, I'm like, yeah, I must have slipped up something in that first to 10, huh? And we kind of laugh about it. And yeah, we've been boys ever since. Yeah, he's got his own thing going on. I got my own thing going on. So when we meet each other, we meet each other. But yeah, that's my boy. I'm really, really happy he got to be, on the level he did with Dragon Ball because he really liked that game. And I told him, I was like, you can definitely do work in this game.
Definitely. All right, well, I didn't see anybody else out there popped anything else in chat, so I believe we are good on our closeout. And Ladon, I wanted to definitely sit here and thank you for sharing your story here tonight.
Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, if there's anything that people are curious about, or you want like a one-off about a certain time in DNF, I'm an open book. I loved this game. I was passionate for it. It's unfortunate the way it turned out, but I can talk about it all day about the ways that I view how it was handled both on a professional level and on like a community level, and even the the negative stuff. We can talk about that for hours, but yeah, man, just keep playing fighting games, keep supporting your locals. It's all gravy in the end. Like, don't listen to what other people are telling you about your game. If you love your game, play your game.
Okay, that's pretty much the name of the game. Anybody want to raid?
Oh, me?
Yeah, anybody want to raid?
Oh god, if Hubert's online, of course, but no, I don't really have anyone in particular. Oh, I think Attack is. Oh no, we're probably done with our weekly. Yeah, can't really read that. Let's see if is Carson this streaming. Oh, there you go. Raid, yeah, SRMstevo for Monster Hunter Worlds.
What's his name?
I'll send it to you on Discord real quick. Just tell him from Ladon and DNF when you raid him. That'll surprise him, I'm sure.
Can do. What's his name now? Let me look this up.
SRMstevo.
SRM. SRMstevo. Oh, here we go.
Yep.
Yo Game Wizard. He knows the Game Wizard? Yeah, I know this. Well, I don't know Stevo, but I know Yo Game Wizard. That's one of the dudes from the Blaze Blue scene, a Dachi player.
Yep. Yep.
Community again.
Ended up
Small
a
world.
ton of DNF.
All right, let's go ahead and start the raid. All right, this will conclude our podcast here in episode 10 on the Space Bridge, and delving into the next layer of DNF and DFO. If you guys have any stories and whatnot you guys wish to talk about regarding dungeon fighters, or any of your own tales and stories throughout the fighting game community, or any of the gaming communities in general that we have in our present time, message me via my Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Blue Sky, however it is you can reach me generally. Let me know a time and a date we can sit and tell that story via the story in general or your own. We're going to get ready to go ahead and raid SRMstevo here on Monster Hunter Wilds. You guys sit tight and tune in to the next episode of the Space Bridge. You guys take care, and like I always say, till all are one.